we really lean into the books.
Yeah.
And if you look at Jordan's work, he is really inspired by a lot of Eastern philosophies from around the world. So it's really a place where we are bouncing off of. It is about kind of hearkening to different cultures, but we're not copying that. You know, in the world there's different designs that come from, you know, you can see repeat designs in, for example, I'm from Morocco, we can see from Moroccan culture, but then I can also see that in Greek culture. So if you really look at the designs and the clothes in the universe, there's a lot of repetition between different cultures that are kind of like meld into one. So I mean, for me, being Moroccan and a Moroccan filmmaker, I love being able to, you know, one of the locations that we went to on our show later on in the season, because there's a lot more, is the Sahara Desert. And I think just the location itself infuses kind of like a certain texture to the lighting, to the vibe, but within all of it, we're all still in Jordan's world, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. When I arrived at the beginning of the process, the first person I really talked to is obviously Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, and we have a lot of meetings just talking about tone and overall like feel for the episodes. Rafe is an incredibly collaborative and generous showrunner. He is the gatekeeper, if you like, for the books and safeguarding the authenticity of the books. He's a real fan of the books, genuine fan of the books. And then we worked very closely with Andre Nekvasil, who's the production designer, who has an incredible team. And I think one of the hallmarks of the show is the level of production design. We're sitting here in Tarvalon in one of the many sets here in Tarvalon, and you can see the level of detail, the graffiti on the walls. You know, everything has been very deeply considered. And so in the opening of Series 2, we're introduced into the White Tower in a lot more detail. We see the labyrinth of the White Tower going from the basement all the way to the Amelin apartments. So we see the politics and the social layers within the White Tower. That opens up for us. We see the Foregate, which is the slum next to Cairn, where Rand is in exile, if you like, where he's hiding from his friends. And then later we meet Atwan's Mill. So all of those are very culturally different. They have different influences, and that has developed over a long period by the production design team and costume design. So Sharon Gillam, who comes in for Series 2, has developed all of the costumes you see in Series 2. And there's a huge amount of research in terms of how we fuse cultures together. So the influences that make Atwan's Mill have to be significantly different to how we see the Foregate or Cairn, which is like a French-Japanese hybrid. So there's Oriental style mixed with French lace and French costume design. So you know, those influences are very clearly defined. And then Atwan's Mill again is different. They're more like a sort of folk culture, which is influenced by you know, North African ideas or different cultural ideas that go into making those costumes. So sort of really, it's a really fascinating aspect of the job, and I love being involved in all of that. It really, the level of detail is amazing.
Absolutely. We have a very diverse cast, an international cast. This show is about people like myself, yourself, as well as Tom's, to be able to watch this and see ourselves in it. That's really important. I think that, you know, we all bring our own thing from wherever we are to it, but ultimately we have to be loyal to the material, which is Jordan's material. A lot of any culture that if you see is reflected in the show, we're paying utmost respect and utmost homage to those cultures. We don't take that lightly. We are very much about opening up the world and actually truly representing what our world is really like, which is very diverse, with a lot of people who look different, and we embrace those differences.
Well, I'm the producer of the show, and I'm basically I'm the person who combines the creative and the production side, and to have the logistics basically on my top and the budget. So when I start, I get normally the scripts or the outlines, so I have discussions with the showrunner and the executive producers, so we're discussing the season, where do we want to shoot, how we want to shoot it. We have decisions about directors or HODs we want to hire, and once we make the decisions, we go ahead and hire, or we make decisions about locations. Like season 2, we shot in not just in Czech Republic, as well in Italy or Morocco. And then, of course, it's budget driven as well. We always want to shoot more, but don't have the budget for it. But so I'm managing the creative part and the economic part.
So I'm an executive producer. So I'm across. I would always describe myself as wearing multiple hats. So I do everything. I work very closely with the writers. I work very closely with Holger on the ground. I'm across many parts of the production, including the post-production. So I from the start right the way through until delivery, I am writing cut notes, script notes, working with Holger in terms of budget, hiring crew, interviewing them with Holger and Rafe, director photography, so many hats I have and I wear, and I like to think people come to me for advice or whatever that they need to talk through, basically, is my job.
I came to the project quite some time ago, over 12 years ago now. So as an executive producer, I was able to secure the rights to the book series, set it up in a way that it could be developed for television, brought Rafe Judkins on board with our partners at Sony Television, and from there built a team that enabled it to be the show that it is now, via the directors, the cast, and ongoing. I like Marigo, give script notes, give notes in the cut, oversee the post-production, the visual effects, and that aspect of it, and just sort of see it all the way through, from book to screen. I guess that would be sort of the purview that I've taken on this.
We have amazing book research, and obviously from the most of it, I'd say 90%, if not more, probably from the books.
Yeah.
So a culture like Korean is, it's a Japanese French culture, and when you do your tour around everybody else today, you will have the conversations about the fact that the inspiration came from real cultures, but we build and inspire the teams, creative teams here, in conjunction with Rafe and the directors, discuss exactly how the costume is going to look, the sets that we're in, the country that we might visit, to give it an otherworldly. But they are based in real culture, but they're quite often a mix of two, so that takes us off into the land of fantasy, where it is different. It's grounded in reality, but it's different.
The first things first is just getting this made as a television series, right? This is a very expansive book series where everything has to be created. It's very expensive. It has all these characters, all these speaking roles. It's really a gigantic adaptation. And so the key, number one, was finding the person in Ray Judkins who knew the books, was a fan of the books, had a passionate sort of personal take on the material, and then having him articulate that passion to the business community, the Amazons of the world, who saw it right away and decided, okay, we're going to make this show, we're going to put enough money behind it to realize this vision. And then once you have that amount of money, it's about, okay, how do we spend it? And with smart people like Marigo and Holger, I mean, you have to make so many decisions that impact. You can't have everything. You have one thing and not the other. So there's never enough to do everything you want, but you have a great amount of money and resources and creative resources to really execute this vision, and Amazon's been fantastic in providing that for us. And as the series gets bigger from season to season, you're going to see, it's going to look bigger, it's going to feel bigger, and the actors are going to feel bigger because you're getting older and you're getting to know them more, and now their characters are evolving. So season to season, it feels bigger creatively, and I think the production look, it just sort of it evolves in that way, like these series do once they sort of take hold of you.
So if I may start about the the process of the prep is actually we are always starting, of course, with the drama, with the scripts, which is kind of base, and we are going back to the books, looking for the research and for understanding each space, each place which is described in the scripts, because we can get more from the books about that. So that we are doing that research, which is kind of followed by the visual research, that we are looking for the different type of nature and different type of architecture to build a world from that. So that's kind of like the basic start, the drama, which is the scripts, and after that, following by the research of the books and checking how Robert Jordan described these spaces or these places in the books, and after that, to kind of make it visualize it. And once we are at this level, we are going into the physical concepts, the designs and concepts of each place, and we are starting the discussion with the other departments special effects, visual effects, and of course directors and other departments on the show.
So our department come a little bit later, after the art department, after the production designer does his work, like a concept wise, because the concepts are so important for us. As you can imagine, we are all are reading the same script, but everybody can see it a little bit differently. So then the concept comes, and we know where we are, actually heading to, and for example, if we know how the sets are gonna look, then we can discuss, what we can provide as, for example, lighting wise. Most of the sets are just lit by flames, so my work is just to bring the flames to those sets, do all that plumbing, all that torches has to be made. We did like 100 torches for the show, and so each set needs to be discussed, and there is a discussion always before we go and shoot there.
Yeah, so that was a kind of a key approach, which was really mentioned in the scripts. And what we did, that we did kind of research looking for a 16th century architecture in Europe, combining that with the 16th century patterns and the furniture and the details of Japanese architecture and Japanese interiors. And also, I should say, there was some inspiration from Korean architecture as well in some moment, that, for example, the entrance gate to the Korean city, which you can see from the foregate, was really inspired by one castle which is in Korea. That kind of moment that you have a wall, which is a stone walls, and these walls are kind of general and kind of generic for the the whole world. And after that, the way how the the roof is done and how the a cladding on the roof is done is completely you can see, okay, that's not Europe, let's say Asia. And regarding the furniture, is really that kind of way how the rooms are dressed, how they are designed, but also have this kind of the pattern and the texture, which was really a lot of Japanese influence in that.
Oh, I see.
So we use the clear spaces, just the basic stone spaces, which is not typical for Japan, of course. But after that, we add the patterns and the colors and the furniture shape into that level. Yeah.
I'm doing those practical effects. So once we were talking about the waves and the channeling and all that, I was the one who's doing the practical things. So we were making wind sources, coming out of the hands, So means behind the person who is just doing their magic, there's a special effects guy sending air blast, to the direction where the wave goes, So the design is made later on by the visual effects department, which is a different department than mine. Well, our departments has to work so close together, because you're creating a magic, you're creating something what you want to look very unusual, you wanna give it to that specific situation great look and moment, So there is a discussion between visual effects and special effects, what can be done practically, and what has to be done later on, because some of the things are just, too difficult to make on the set, and but some of the things just need to be made on the set because practical effects is always the great base to start, and develop that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also there's a lot of stuff which look like a natural and kind of normal the camera for the people, but it has a lot of like a work to be done to make them safe and camera ready. Like like you saw that short scene when Rand's head in a car high in the foregate is actually burned. I don't know if you saw that episode, but actually it looked like a normal fire, but it was kind of tricky to shoot it because it has to be safe, it has to be like a repeated, all of that. So all of that work is kind of in this kind of discussion, but I should say it's like an instant dialogue between the departments and improving the quality of the shots and quality of the sets and all.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. My name is Gabriel.
Nice to meet you, Gabriel.
Nice to meet you.
Brilliant. Welcome.
Hi. So to start off the interview, I wanted to talk about this new season. We've been to a lot of different cities and we've seen a lot in the first season, but this season, a lot of it's about expanding the world.
Yeah.
And within that, you translate this culture that existed in the books into real life. And I wanted to ask you about that process of creating new culture and creating culture, especially with things like hair, that have remained so prominent historically.
Yeah, it's, once I read the scripts, in my mind, I have, my interpretation of how I want to design, the different looks for where they go to, either it's Antoine's Mill or, we head into Tarvalon, and especially in the White Tower. So, and then of course these guys here, which is the Shanchan. So for me, it starts off with the process of reading the scripts and having an idea, and then I talk to Rafe, the showrunner, and Justine, as well as Sarah Nakamura, who's, for me, I call her the guru because she's read the book so many times, and so she gives me like the little details that I don't get from the scripts, like the thought of Alana, where she comes from, she has, bells that are either in a costume or in her hair. So when you first see her in episode 1, she has bells, like these little bells that are attached to the back of her hair. So those are the sort of little things, the little details that I get and that I can start the design process. So, and then once we head into Korean, we have the fact that it's Japanese along with French inspired. So, to figure out what that actually looks like is, it took us a few weeks to kind of iron out and have an understanding of how we're going to do these wigs and what they're actually going to look like. And so I've prepared some for you over here as well. So come on for a little walk. So this is part of the inspiration of, Korean and into the party scene that we had. So if Sharon, the costume designer, if she goes more into sort of like the Japanese inspired, I'll kind of tweak it and come back into the French. So we're not all of the same saying. So it works. I think it works. So, and we've never seen something like this on screen before, because most of the time you stick to a period, which is Victorian or Edwardian or something like that. So this is kind of new and fresh, and it's a fantasy. So I get to kind of do whatever I want in a way. It's nice.
No. I think the period of the Wheel of Time is really unique because it's not necessarily in the past,
Yeah.
but it's also not necessarily in the future.
Yeah.
And do you think that that kind of ambiguity in time and location gives you a sense of freedom or a little bit of limitation?
No, definitely freedom. I've got this arc that is so massive and so big and vast that for me, I have to just, my guide for stopping is if I go too sci-fi. You know what I mean? That's literally my limitation. And for this world, my mind is completely open. I'm so fortunate and lucky to be on a show of this magnitude and this big, so that I every day, every single script that I get, it's almost exciting. I can't wait for the next script to come because creatively this it makes me hungry to kind of see what we can do next in the next lot of scripts that come forward. So my brain is constantly active for a whole year while shooting. So it's great. And me and Sharon, the costume designer, we riff off one another, and so it's a nice combination. Yeah.
Could you explain all of these? Because
Yeah.
I'm especially interested in the cultural inspirations, not only the cultural inspirations, but how you've used real world cultures and kind of like use them as a tool to necessarily construct something new.
Yeah, well, you have an understanding that the show is huge in diversity, and so therefore when I do have Alana, I want to bring a little bit more of the Indian culture with her, and then we have it also with Swan Sanchez, and I also want to have, if we have an person from Africa, I want their hair to resemble where they are from, and so that's a big thing, and a big thing for me to get right, because I want to honour the fact that it is such a huge diverse cast and the ethnic race that they come from. So it is also, it's big for me. So, and I'll be able to take you down here.
And I'd also guess that the study behind and the research that goes behind those cultures and to create that authenticity may also be a lot too.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And the consideration that I put into each and every detail, and from me coming, I'm mixed race as well, so from me coming from New Zealand, it's, I am all aware of, everybody's, I guess, cultural sensitivities. And so I take that on board as well. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Come on down here this way. So we have Leandrin and Varen. Varen is one of the new characters for this season. There's a lot of great characters coming forward and a lot of new ones coming forward this season. So we have Varen, and then you would have seen Avienda, who's part of the Aiel. So the Aiel are huge coming up, and so they make a huge impact into the books and the stories. So and then of course there was the Sean Chan that you've all seen on screen. So, but yeah, they're making everybody look completely different, and within the Aes Sedai world, every Aes Sedai has a Aja and a colour that they belong to. So it's whether they're a warrior or a Liberian, or and so the hairstyles kind of contradict that within the White Tower. For me, making sure that their hairstyles also represent, what Aja they are, is really important also. So.
Yeah, no, I also noticed that I mainly focused on Lon, Alana, and Min when I was looking at hairstyles. Yeah. And I also noticed, hairstyles may also reflect culture and the origins of these characters, they also reflect their personalities and their priorities. And I wanted to know, when it comes to not the looks of a character, but the personality and how that character thinks and functions, and translating that into hair and makeup. How does that go?
I mean, I think for me, I work with a ton of wigs, and so for me, I have something like 400 wigs in my department, and so 99% of the time, an actor will be in a wig. So for me to be able to put that character 50% of the way, sometimes 80% of the way into their character, and allowing the actor and I to work closely with one another and making sure that we build that character together and that they feel like they are stepping into the shoes of Lan and Min and, you know, Alana. So it's important that I hit it right so that they feel like they, you know, can get out of my makeup trailer and feel the character, which I do get a lot of input back from all of the actors, and they are impressed or inspired, you know, and they want to develop the character with me because, of course, you know, Lan will go into many different changes throughout the season, so will Alana, and so we're constantly talking to all the actors just to make sure that we are on the same point as their characters are growing. I read the scripts and I go into details of every actor, but it's up to them also. They go into more details that I don't get to do, you know, when I have something like 200 cast. So it's good for us to be able to chat and talk, and you know, and I do with, you know, with Lan and with Min as well. You know, Min's look this season is great, and she's loving it.
And to kind of finalize the interview, I wanted to go more into how you got into hair and makeup and the impact that hair and makeup on screen and on media and in pop culture reflects to the people watching it and the people who either want to go to a similar route as you or are studying this kind of art.
Yeah, definitely. Like I started, I sort of fell into makeup, to be fair, and I thought, you know, this school had come up in New Zealand, and I was like, oh, this looks like a bit of fun, and I was 15 at the time, I was 16 at the time, so I figured I'm going to go do this for a year and see if I liked it, and doors sort of started opening after I did my training, and I ended up going on to Lord of the Rings and the movie, and so therefore from that stage I had the who's who of the makeup world at my fingertips, and two of my, you know, fantastic mentors even today, Gino Vassavito, who taught me everything in prosthetics, and then I had an amazing training to do with wigs, and so when I was young, when I was, you know, 19, I didn't know what I had at that time, you know, and I didn't know what I was being taught at that time because I was young and stupid. But today, those are my assets that I bring onto every show. And so therefore, when the young students are coming to me and they want to learn, I make sure that every project that I'm on, I do a training regime. So I want to give back and for them to be inspired of how I got into the industry and who I was taught by, so that eventually someone will be standing here going, you know, Davina was a mentor for me, and that would be one of my biggest goals, you know.
Well, that's so inspirational.
Yeah.
Also to not only just secure your own career, but also to build the career of others.
Yeah.
Also progress this art form, because I don't think when people think about movies or TV, the first thing that they think about is hair and makeup.
Yeah.
A lot of it's like production,
That's
editing,
right.
acting.
Well, I thought for me I would be in theatre, you know. I thought I didn't really know the world even existed in film and TV at that stage, and so my world was always going to be in theatre. And then, like I said, the doors just started opening, and you know, I fell into Lord of the Rings, and so it's a definite, you know, an amazing kind of platform to launch off. So I have had a wonderful career so far.
Hi, Jan.
Hi, Gabriel.
So nice to
How are
meet
you?
you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm good.
I wanted to go into your stunts, and more specifically, your stunt history. And first and foremost, I wanted to ask you about how you got into stunts, what introduced you, and how you ended up in the Wheel of Time and coordinating the stunts for the show.
Okay, well, I started more than 30 years ago when I was 16 and I was in high school. And I happened to, I always did some sports when I was a kid. I did judo and taekwondo and did some climbing and later motocross and stuff. So I always loved this kind of thing and always loved stunts. And luckily I started to go to a gym where I met the boss of the stunt team here in Czech Republic, and he asked me if I want to join the team because he wanted some, young, people to come in and refresh the team, and also he was working on a young Indiana Jones Chronicles and a Swing Kids, and he needed some young kind of kids, in the war and stuff. So I went for the training, and he said, okay, I think I can use you. Keep coming for the training, and I started to work as a stunt performer when I was 16.
Wow. So it's been quite a while.
It's been quite a while, yeah. And of course it started slowly, and I would have a few days here and there, and I could finish school, and then after school I was working a little bit more and more, and when I was about 22, 24, I became a professional stuntman, and that's all I've been doing.
Yeah. So today I wanted to focus on culture's impact and effect on stunt work. If your culture and your history had informed or affected your work within this specific season.
Well, I think some of it, yes, because some of it feels like it's more based on kind of medieval ages and stuff, even though we are far in the future.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, like, whatever I brought from our culture, like, the medieval style and the fight and the brute strength, which I would say we try to kind of use for maybe Marcus a little bit, for Perrin, because he's using the hammer and the axe, and so it's more kind of like a Viking-y feeling and stuff. Then we've got Lan, who is more, I would say, like Japanese samurai style, like, from that culture pieces, but still mixed up with the modern stuff. And also, of course, as I say, it's because it's so far in the future, we kind of feel like it's good to blend the things together and make it, a little bit new style based on, what we like and what we feel like that the source should be, but still, have the option of using, martial arts and culture of, everybody else. And I think that this show allows it because it's so diverse, and you get people from all over the world, and they come with their own thing, ideas, what their background was, and they say, okay, maybe I could use this because I feel like, that kind of comes with my character and stuff. So with their help, and mixed up all of that, I think we achieved pretty good, unique styles for, everybody in the show.
Yeah. I also wanted to specifically ask about Lan. We saw a little bit of his martial arts and his stunts in the first season, but now we seem to be going a lot more into it this season, especially in the first 2 episodes that I watched, the fight with the fades. Yeah. That was one of the first times that I really saw that character have a very unique and original set of choreography and movements that are his. So I wanted to ask, what was the design process of designing and coming up with Daniel Henney's choreography, and what kind of inspirations did you take from wherever you did?
Well, again, we kind of try to connect what we did with Daniel in season 1 when he was in the opening scene fighting the Trollocs. We started kind of with kind of samurai style, with also the weapon kind of it is a katana sword, so we wanted him to keep that movement but add another weapon which he was using in the Fate fight, and make sure that he can really perform all of it. So we basically just build on top of what he already knew, and added a few more moves, but like kicks and stuff, martial arts, but it's still based on on the same kind of swords, and then the same kind of like a style that we had from the season 1.
Yeah. So your answer to my last question perfectly transitions me to my next, because I actually wanted to ask about the designs of the swords, because I'm guessing, especially for the character like Lan, and also the iconic sword of the Dragon Reborn, we can see that it already has a design, and it already has a very iconic look to it that's not only described in the books but also in the script. And I'm guessing that was already finalized when you came in.
It was definitely finalized by Rafe, the showrunners, and the creative part of the team, and of course with the collaboration with the props, and and the art department, they did a lot of drawing, and then after that we kind of looked at the design and said, okay, let's see what the size of the sword's going to be, what it's good for Daniel. So he would kind of practice with some just a training weapon and say, okay, this feels maybe too long, or so we would adjust the bits and pieces a little bit, but already kept the design that would be more like based on the original kind of picture and that you can see like in the books and stuff. So but still like we played with the weight and the balance of the sword and just to make it work better.
Yeah, and I'm also guessing that the certain fighting styles also change depending on the weapon and also, as you said, from the location that the weapon comes from. So then out of these that you have here, could you explain to me just a few and what kind of fighting styles or what kind of cultures they come from and how your stunt coordination and how the choreography might change between them?
Yeah, well, you can see some of it. It's actually like some of it we have just the training weapons that we use, like this is made from aluminum and it's not actually used in the show in camera, but it's more as a practice, for the actors to see what it feels like when the sword is balanced. So, that's just a training sword. But then we've got the IL spear, which is from the IL world, and then to work on that one, it was since season 1 when we had Tiger in Fighting. It was the same thing. We were kind of playing with the length to make it good balance for the performer and for the actors when they have it in the hand, so it doesn't feel too heavy and it feels like it kind of goes with the design that the costume came up with and also what the book says and stuff. And based on that we were researching some background of if maybe to use some like in the history in Africa, fighting, like groups using shorter spears and stuff, and we're looking at their moves and if we could use some of it. And some of it, of course, you talk with the book experts that we have on the show and say, what would the fan, basics, expect from the moves and how realistic it needs to be and what we can add to make it a little bit more fantasy and make them a little bit kind of superpowered, even though they are not, but make them really, better warriors. So, it's again, it's a lot of talking involved first and lots of drawing from the art department and the props. And then, of course, then we kind of read about, the culture, what they come from and why they fight and why they use the spears and, where it came from, why they are such a great warriors. And so, it's good to know all of this background. And for that, we also, we speak with Rafe a lot and he gives us a lot of the information we need. And so here we got some of the Shoshone army sword, which is made from wood. And that's the one we actually use in the scene. And it makes things a little bit safer. It's a little lighter. You can have a... Yeah, so for that one, if we hit someone, then you're not gonna cut them and stuff. So that's basically, I would say that we used a lot of the movement that it's more like European medieval moves for this army. I'm not sure if that,
No, that helped. That's very informative.
works, but...
Thank you so much.
And then, of course, like we spoke about Lan already, that is more like a samurai-based, moves. And also Daniel brings a lot to it because he does kind of his exercise and he trains hard and he does his workout and his practice also back home. So he kind of, he's a perfectionist and he really wants, to do everything and then looks good. So, yeah.